Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the darker side of history quietly, slowly, and one careful step at a time. You're not a knight or a noble. You're not even a peasant in the fields. No, tonight, you're the executioner. You stand in the shadow of the gallows, gripping an axe handle that's smoother than your love life. Your boots sink into the mud, thick with centuries of blood, beer, and bad decisions. Crowds gather, but not for you. Not really. They come to see death. And you're just the middleman. You clear your throat. No one claps. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and what time you're listening in the comments. I'm always curious. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're in medieval Europe, say, late 1300s. The wind stinks of horses and roasting meat, but mostly of people. Cities haven't figured out plumbing yet, so chamber pots fly from windows and splash into alleys with a cheerfully grim plop. You trudge through this city often, but unlike other workers, you don't hawk bread or shoes. You deliver finality. The town square is your theatre. Your tools aren't delicate, just blunt steel. Ropes, stakes, sometimes even boiling oil when the judge gets creative. You don't choose who dies, you just make it happen. Sometimes it's a thief. Sometimes it's a noble who crossed the wrong noble. Sometimes it's someone who looked at a priest funny during Lent. But your job doesn't start with the axe. No, it starts with a summons. A scroll with bad handwriting, and worse news, you're needed in the square at dawn. It's not exactly an invite you can decline. You wipe your hands on your apron, still stained from yesterday's hanging, and sigh. Again, you've got no co-workers, no team-building exercises, no HR department to complain to when a guy's head doesn't come off cleanly. Just you, your tools, and the town crier announcing the next soul to be removed from Earth's ledger. Children whisper your name like it's a curse. Women cross themselves when you walk by. Men nod stiffly, but no one invites you in for ale. The church lets you come in late and sit in the back unless it's raining, in which case, maybe don't come at all. You didn't pick this life. Maybe your father did this. Maybe his father. Executioners' sons become executioners. It's less a career path and more a doom-laced destiny. You're not a villain, but you're not exactly a hero either. You live on the edge of town, literally. Your cottage is perched by the gallows field, where the bodies hang for days as warnings. You keep to yourself. Even your garden grows a little crooked, as if the soil is too nervous to grow straight. At night, your dreams are cluttered. You don't see the faces, your brain's too kind for that, but you hear the sound the axe makes. It's not a chop, it's a thick, wet thunk, followed by a silence that never feels clean. You've learned to live with it, mostly. Sometimes you wonder if you're doing God's work or the devil's. Historians still argue whether executioners were feared more for their moral ambiguity or just for the smell. And yes, there's a smell. You burn herbs to mask it. Mugwort, sage, sometimes rosemary if the apothecary is feeling generous. But it never quite works. Death has a scent that clings. You walk into a room and people smell endings. They don't say it, but their noses twitch. Still, there are perks. You don't pay taxes. Sometimes you're given free bread, and when the city needs a cleaning, like a dog infestation or a leper camp moved, guess who they call Yep? You're like a medieval garbage disposal with emotional baggage. Once, a monk tried to save your soul by bathing you in river water. You went along with it mostly to see if it worked. It didn't. You still felt the same after, just wetter. Your axe is the only thing that respects you. It's got a name unofficially. You call it mercy, not because you're poetic, but because sometimes if you swing just right, the whole thing's over before the condemned even knows it. You check your blade before bed, oil it, sharpen it, whisper to it. Maybe. Not out loud. Of course that'd be weird. Probably. This job's not about justice. It's about procedure. The scroll says be there at dawn. You're there. Rain. Snow. Plague. It doesn't matter. Someone always has to pull the lever, and that someone is you. You wake before the sun, stretch your aching arms, and step into boots you haven't cleaned in a week. No point. They'll be soaked in blood before lunch. As you walk to the square, you pass the baker, who looks away, the blacksmith, who mutters a prayer, a stray dog, who follows you anyway because dogs don't care about reputations. You arrive at the scaffold, wooden, wobbly. The rope already sways in the wind like it knows what's coming. You feel a strange calm. This is the only place where you truly know what's expected. No guessing, no pretense. Just wood, steel, and silence. A guard hands you a cloth for your face. You tie it on, partly for anonymity, mostly to avoid eye contact with someone about to die. The crowd murmurs. Children climb barrels to see. Someone selling pies, because even death days are market days. The condemned is dragged up. He stumbles, cries, maybe begs, maybe curses. You've heard it all, and through it all, you say nothing. Just grip your axe, line it up, and wait for the nod. It comes. You swing. The crowd gasps, or cheers, or turns away. But you just exhale. Another day, another soul, another silent walk home. You walk back from the square, your hands still trembling though you'll never admit it. The axe is heavier now somehow, or maybe it's just the air. Thick, judgy. You pass the baker again. He doesn't look up. The dog's gone. Even it knows when to keep its distance. You step through your crooked garden, past the half-dug herbs and a fence post held together with twine and spite. Your house is barely more than a shed with a chimney, but at least it's quiet. Too quiet. Maybe. The kind that lets your thoughts get rowdy. You sit at your table. The stool creaks like it resents your weight. You stare at the piece of salted meat you left out this morning and wonder if it's still safe to eat. Probably not. But you eat it anyway, chewing slowly, methodically. You've learned to savour things, even bad things, especially bad things. It's a skill. See, people think executioners are rich. They imagine you get a fat purse for every head that rolls. But here's the truth, you're barely paid more than a rag picker. Most towns only offer a small stipend, just enough to keep you from starving, but never enough to thrive. You don't even get tips. That one noblewoman who told you she'd make it worth your while if you made her husband's execution look merciful. She paid in compliments and eye contact, neither of which your landlord accepts as rent. And even if you were rich, where would you spend it? The tavern. The last time you went, the serving girl dropped your ale before reaching your table. Slipped, she said. You didn't press it. You know fear when you see it. You try the market sometimes. You wait patiently, say, please, and hand over clean coins. But the vendors wrap your goods like they're handling a contagious scroll. One time, someone spat near your feet. You're not sure if it was an accident. You didn't ask. Historians often debate whether medieval executioners were legally shunned or simply socially iced out. The consensus: a little of both. You exist in the margins, not outlawed but not embraced. Like a human compost bin, technically useful, thoroughly avoided. You get your food from the outskirts. Hunters trade with you out of pity or morbid curiosity. One even asked if you'd ever be willing to help him disappear a deer poached from the Baron's forest. You declined. Too messy. You have standards. Oddly enough, there's a rumour that you're cursed. Not just bad luck, real cursed. Warts that sing at night. Eyes that can see a man's sins. Once, a friar claimed your shadow moved a different way from your body. You laughed, quietly, mostly because you have noticed that too. You've developed a twitch, by the way. It's subtle, just a blink that lasts a beat too long. It started after that hanging where the rope snapped. Twice. The third time, the man screamed, "You can't kill me." The crowd clapped. You didn't. You just stared, then tightened the rope yourself. Sometimes, after a job, you walk the long way home, past the churchyard. You don't go in. God doesn't really RSVP your prayers, but you like the sound of the bells. They're clean, orderly. Nothing like the voices in your head that argue about ethics over soup. Back home, you light a candle. You sharpen your tools. Not because you enjoy it, though people assume you do, but because it keeps your hands busy. Idle hands invite bad thoughts, like wondering what the condemned felt in those last seconds. Not fear. You've seen that. This is something else, like relief, or maybe just confusion. You've started keeping a ledger, not of names that's too grim, but of dates. Every execution gets a mark. Some weeks are empty, others 4, 5, even 7. One bad winter. You worked almost daily. That year. Even you started dreaming of the gallows. You woke up swinging once, hit your head on the low beam. Never really laughed about it. You own exactly 2 pairs of clothes. One for work. One for not work. They're nearly identical. The work one just smells worse. You've tried washing it in the river. Didn't help. Blood's persistent, like bad gossip. Sometimes you wonder if you could leave. Just pack up. Disappear. Go be a farmer somewhere the trees don't whisper your name. But where would you go? The townsfolk would follow you with questions. Or worse, with torches. Besides, your face is known, or at least your silhouette. That wide-shouldered, hooded figure on the platform that sticks in people's dreams. You could try to hide, but your posture would betray you. You've got the stance of someone who's ended more lives than he's saved, and that's hard to unlearn. Still, you're not entirely alone. There's a letter from another executioner 2 towns over. You met once during a double execution twins, ironically. He said he'd write, and he did. His handwriting is terrible. His joke's worse. But it's something. He signed his last letter with, "Still not dead." Hope you're the same. You chuckled when you read it, then carefully folded it and put it under your mattress. You've kept every letter. Maybe one day you'll reply. Until then, you wait. You eat what you can. You feed the stray if he comes back. You avoid mirrors when you can. Not because you're afraid, just tired of being reminded. You pour yourself a drink. It's weak ale, but it does the job. You sit in the doorway, watching the wind twist the grass in the execution field. There's a shape swinging there, yesterday's work, still hanging. You probably should have taken it down. But then again, the law says 3 days, and you, of all people, follow the law, even when it stinks. The moon creeps higher, the stars flicker like shy lanterns. You stretch your legs, your knees pop. You're not as young as you were. Tomorrow may be another call, another scroll, another walk into the square. But tonight you're just a man on a stool, drinking slightly sour ale and watching the ghosts sway in the wind. You sleep like someone who's learned not to dream, shallow, uneventful. The kind of sleep where your body recharges but your soul still clocks over time. When you wake, the room is cold, and the candle stub you forgot to snuff has melted into a waxy sigh on the table. You stretch. Bones crack. You mutter something that might be a prayer or might be a complaint about your knee. Either way, nobody's listening. You step into your work clothes not because you've got a job today, but because everything else smells like old onions and despair. Outside, the morning mist clings like guilt. It wraps the gallows in fog, turning it from wood into suggestion. You sip yesterday's ale straight from the jug. Warm, bitter, comforting. They don't teach you how to handle the smell. You figure it out over time. First it was the blood, then it was the sweat. Then the other, less pleasant things. People don't talk about that part of death. The leaking, the loosening, the sheer inconvenience of a body doing its final business right in front of everyone, especially you. You try everything. Lavender under the nose, vinegar-soaked rags. Once, someone told you to chew cloves. You did. You accidentally swallowed one and coughed so hard you missed your cue. That was a rough morning. The crowd laughed. You didn't. Eventually, you just got used to it, which may be worse. Your hands never really come clean. The blood settles into the lines, like your palms are writing stories you'll never read. You keep your fingernails short, but it doesn't help. No matter how much ash or soap you scrub, there's always a faint rust-brown tinge that whispers, "Hey, remember that guy with the limp the townsfolk sure do? Or at least they pretend to. One widow left you a basket of apples. No, just apples." The next day, your door had murderer scratched into it. You assume the two events are unrelated. You ate the apples anyway. Children dare each other to run past your house. You see them from the window, little blurs of wool and shrieking. One girl once stopped and stared at you for a solid minute. You stared back. She didn't flinch. That was unsettling. You don't go into the city unless you have to. The apothecary refuses to make eye contact. The innkeeper nods like he's being paid for each nod. You asked for hot water once and got it in a bowl with a note that read, "Don't come back." So you learned to boil your own herbs, make your own salves, stitch your own shirts, even trap your own rats. You're like a sad medieval Boy Scout with a knife collection and no merit badges. Some days you sit by the river, not for fishing though you try. It's more about the current, the way it never stops, never apologizes. There's a log wedged under the bridge that creaks every time water passes it. That sound has become your lullaby. Once, a monk sat beside you and asked, "Do you regret it?" You said, which part he said, all of it. You didn't answer. You just watched the river pretend it wasn't listening. And yet, the job continues. People don't stop committing crimes. Or at least, people don't stop getting accused of them. That's an important distinction. Historians still argue whether most medieval executions were based on justice or just convenience. But you're not a historian. You're a clean-up crew with better posture. You get summoned again. The scroll is damp, ink smudged like the scribe sneezed on it. It just says be ready. That usually means a noble. They don't like public displays, prefer private executions, easier to manage the gossip. You prepare differently for those. Clean shirt, polished boots. You even comb your beard. There's a weird sense of theatre to it. The audience may be smaller, but the expectations are higher. This one is a knight, not a good one, accused of treason, though you suspect he just backed the wrong lord in a dispute over sheep taxes. Doesn't matter. He's tied to a chair, eyes furious, mouth gagged with something expensive looking. You're told to make it clean. That's always the order. Clean, as if you're mopping a floor. The room is stone. Echoes bounce like nervous birds. 2 guards watch from the corner, pretending not to be scared of you. You nod. You draw the blade. You hesitate not out of mercy, but calculation. You've done this enough to know the right angle, the right swing, the exact speed to make it merciful. Or at least tidy. It's done before the second echo returns. You leave without a word. You're given a coin pouch, heavier than usual. Blood money, literally. You weigh it in your hand. Then you throw it in the river on the way home. You're not noble. You're not pious. You just didn't want that man's ghost following you to breakfast. Back home, the candle flickers even though there's no draft. You write another mark in your ledger. The ink is running low. You consider using blood for a second. You laugh at the thought. A real laugh. First one in a month. You don't do it. Of course. You're strange, not theatrical. You boil water for a bath. Add rosemary and nettles. You soak until your skin wrinkles and the steam feels like forgiveness. You think of writing that letter to your fellow executioner. Maybe share that story. Maybe laugh together over the absurdity of dying rich, gagged with silk. But you don't. Not tonight. You dry off. Dress again. Sit by the window. The gallows creak in the distance. You whisper to the wind. Still not dead. Hope you're the same. And for once, the silence doesn't feel lonely. There's a knock at your door. That's rare enough to make you pause mid-bite. A hunk of stale bread half dipped in broth dangling from your fingers. You chew slowly, glance toward the crooked door, and wait. Maybe they'll go away. They knock again. You sigh, stand, crack your neck, open the door. It's the mayor's runner, barely out of boyhood. Cloak too big, boots too small. He avoids your eyes like your face might cast a hex. He holds out a folded parchment with the town seal. You take it. He doesn't wait for a reply, just bolts down the path like he touched something cursed. Which, to be fair, he kind of did. You close the door and break the wax. Another execution. Tomorrow. Public. Unusual charge this time, witchcraft. You groan. Not because of the crime, but because witchcraft trials are never clean. They're loud, spectacular, full of spectacle and 0 sense. You're not an actor. But every time they burn someone for talking to the moon or sneezing too hard, you're expected to perform. You toss the parchment into the fire. It crumples like a guilty conscience. The next morning, you head to the town square early. It's already buzzing. Vendors sharpening knives. Children chasing each other with stick swords. Someone selling witch-proof bread, which is just regular bread with a cross scratched into it. You set up the stake yourself. The wood's damp, probably pine. It'll smoke more than burn. You make a note to stand upwind. The town guard arrives with the accused, an old woman with eyes like boiled marbles and a mouth that never stops moving. She's muttering something. Prayers, curses, grocery lists you can't tell. Someone in the crowd hurls a cabbage. It misses. Barely. The woman doesn't flinch. You wrap her hands, tie her to the post. She stares at you like she knows your middle name. You pretend not to care, but you do. Just a little. A priest starts reading from a scroll. The usual stuff consorting with the devil, flying at night, turning ale sour. Historians still argue whether these charges were actually believed or simply used to eliminate inconvenient people. You suspect both. The woman coughs, loud, once, twice. The priest stumbles in his reading. The crowd tenses. You've seen this act before. A last-minute confession, a sudden illness, a plea for mercy that turns into a spectacle. But not this time. You light the torch. The flames catch slow. The smoke rises faster. It curls around her, reaching for the sky like it's trying to escape its own guilt. She doesn't scream. She just keeps muttering, until the crackling overtakes the words. You step back. The crowd watches. Some cheer. Some cry. One boy vomits. You wait. Not because you want to, because it's your job to make sure it's done. When it's over, you turn away. Your cloak stinks of smoke and charred fabric. You don't take it off until you're home. You drop it outside, let the wind deal with it. You wash your hands in a bucket. You scrub until your knuckles burn, still not clean. That night, you dream of fire, not the flames but the muttering, over and over, like a lullaby you never asked for. You wake in the dark, sweating. You sit by the fire, not close, just near enough to feel something other than cold. The next day, you visit the edge of the forest, not to hunt, not to hide, just to be away. You sit on a log older than most buildings in town. You listen. Trees creak, birds rustle. Life goes on. An old woman appears. You almost reach for your dagger, out of habit. But she just smiles. You were kind to her, she says. You blink. I watched. You don't reply. She said you'd be next. You raise an eyebrow. She saw it in the smoke. You stare. The woman shrugs, turns, and disappears into the trees. You stay there a while, longer than you should, until your legs go numb. That night, you sharpen your axe with more care than usual. You polish it until it reflects candlelight. You whisper something to it. You don't even notice. Later, as you lay down, you think about curses, not the dramatic kind, just the slow ones, like being remembered, like being whispered about. You close your eyes, and the muttering begins again. The muttering stays with you. It drifts in with the morning fog, curls in your ears while you chop firewood, and hovers just behind your shoulder when no one else is near. It's not words anymore, just the rhythm, like water dripping into a still bucket, like breath, like blame. You're summoned again before you can finish your stew. Same runner, still avoids your eyes like they might ignite something. You nod without reading the parchment. At this point, you already know the pattern. This time it's not a witch, not a traitor, not even a murderer. It's a baker's boy, barely old enough to grow a moustache, caught stealing silverware from a merchant. Third offence, the punishment amputation. Right hand. You hate these. Not because they're gruesome though they are, but because they're too tidy. The law demands precision. There's no room for error. You can swing an axe at a neck with some forgiveness. Arms. Different story. The square is unusually quiet. No jeering crowd today. Just the merchant, the magistrate, and the boy's mother, gripping a rosary so tightly the beads snap. The boy trembles. His face is blotchy, tear-streaked. You kneel to his level. You don't say anything, but you look at him. Really look. Most don't. They just gawk or judge. You study his face the way a mason studies a stone he's about to chisel. You whisper, "Don't move." He nods, barely. You mark the joint, just below the wrist. You breathe in through your nose, out through your teeth, and you swing. The blade is sharp. The crowd gasps. The boy screams once short, "Hi," like a kettle about to whistle. The blood hits your apron. Warm, immediate. A healer rushes in, presses herbs, wraps gauze. The mother is sobbing. The magistrate nods with approval, like you just passed an exam. You clean the blade, step back, and walk away. Later, in your cottage, you sit by the fire and rub your own wrist. The joint aches in sympathy. You wonder if the boy will learn to use his left hand. You wonder if his mother will forgive you. You wonder how much silverware is worth a hand. Historians still argue whether medieval punishments were meant to deter crime or just entertain the masses. You've never seen a crowd stop stealing after a hand flew off. You have, however, seen them cheer louder when the blood arced just right. You keep a box under your bed. Inside old tools, broken blades, bits of rope, and a few bones. Animal, probably. You think. You don't really remember. Once, you tried to throw it all out. You made it halfway to the woods, then turned back. You opened the box, had the bloodied bandage from the boy's arm, folded, tucked, part of the archive now. People collect coins. You collect consequences. You eat in silence. You sleep lightly. The wind hisses through the cracks in your shutters like it's trying to repeat the boy's scream. You dream of a marketplace, a loud one, bright, cheerful. But when you try to buy bread, your coin is refused. The baker just holds up a bleeding hand. You wake up biting your own tongue. The next week, no summons come. It's a strange relief. You mend your roof, tend to your garden, braid rope in long, distracted spirals. You even try painting. The result is terrible, but it's quiet. Then comes a new kind of scroll. Not from the mayor, from the crown. A royal judge is coming. A case of noble lineage, high treason. You're requested by name to assist. That never happens. You pack your tools, fold your cloak, sharpen everything twice. The journey is 3 days on horseback. The guards don't speak to you. The driver doesn't make eye contact. You don't mind. The silence is companionable. The castle is stone and shadow. Cold hallways. Echoes that bite. They give you a room with a bed and soap. You use both, suspiciously. In the chamber, the accused waits, a young lord, arrogant, pale. His wrists are bound, but he smiles like someone who's always gotten away with everything. He's guilty, you're told. Letters, alliances, coin passed to the wrong hands. The king demands a statement, a lesson, a message carved in red. They want a beheading, public, grand, fast. You check the scaffold. It's too clean, too polished. It feels theatrical. You adjust the block, test the trapdoor, whisper to the wood. On the morning of the execution, the Lord's smile is gone. His knees shake. He asks to speak. You listen. You always do. Not out of mercy, just habit. He says he was trying to protect his people, that the crown is corrupt, that his sister is innocent. You don't say a word. You guide him forward. The crowd is huge. Nobles, guards, children on shoulders. Someone plays a lute, off-key. You place his head gently on the block. He breathes fast, shallow. You grip the handle. You count. 1, 2, swing. The head falls clean. Rolls once. Stops, staring at the sky like it's surprised to see clouds. The crowd erupts, a mix of cheers and gasps. Somewhere, someone claps like it's theatre. You don't bow. You wipe the blade. Step back. Later. A scribe tries to hand you gold. You decline. He insists. You take it, but leave it on the windowsill of a beggar's chapel that night. Back in your room, you peel off your cloak, wash your hands, sit on the bed, and wait for the muttering to begin again. It does. Only this time, it sounds like the young lord. You return home under grey skies, the kind that press low and wet against your thoughts. The journey back from the castle takes longer than expected. Muddy roads, a lame horse, and a driver who hums the same 5-note tune for 3 days straight. You don't complain. You just count the birds, the ruts in the road, the hours since your last muttering dream. When you finally see the crooked chimney of your cottage, you almost smile. Almost. But your gate creaks in a new way, and your door doesn't open quite right. Something has shifted in your absence. You step inside. The smell hits first. Not blood, not rot. Something floral. You find a bundle of herbs tied with red twine on your table. Lavender, rue, nightshade. A charm of protection or a curse in polite wrapping. You check the windows. All latched, the back door locked. Someone's been here, and they wanted you to know it. You burn the bundle on your hearth. It sparks violently, flares blue, then fizzles into ash. You say nothing, but your axe hand tightens. Sleep doesn't come easy that night. You lie still, listening for footsteps that never come. The muttering is louder now, still formless, still persistent, like something beneath the language, scratching at the floorboards of your mind. 3 days pass without a summons. You fill the time with tasks repairing your fence, sorting tools, boiling bones for glue. You fix the hinge on your gate, repack your gear, polish the axe twice, then once more just to be sure. Your hands move like they know something's coming. And it does. Another scroll. The same runner, slightly taller now, or maybe just less afraid. This time, the wax seal is different. A new crest. A merchant family. Big one. Known for their salt trade and tendency to hold grudges. You unroll it. A woman, accused of poisoning her husband. Trial held. Verdict passed. Sentence death by drowning. You raise an eyebrow. Drowning isn't common. It's costly, complicated. But this is a wealthy family. They want tradition, symbolism. The water will wash the sin away, they say. You've heard that one before. You walk to the river with the town guard the next morning. The platform has been built hastily, wood still damp, ropes too thick. A barrel waits at the edge. Heavy, full, cold. She arrives bound, silent, middle-aged, face blank, not weeping, not raging, just still. You read the charges aloud. She does not flinch. The townspeople gather on the far bank, whispering behind their hands. Someone's selling roasted chestnuts. Of course. You lower her slowly, carefully, into the barrel, a final breath, then down. The water churns. Her eyes open, close, then open again. You count, not out loud. In your head, 10 seconds, 20, 30. The bubbles stop. You hold, 40, 50. Stillness. You nod. She's pulled out, lifeless. The priest mumbles a blessing. The guards disperse. The crowd lingers. Someone asks, "Did she suffer?" You shrug. Later. At home. You sit by the fire and stare at your reflection in a bowl of soup. It wobbles, distorts. You watch yourself ripple apart. Historians still argue whether executions by drowning were meant to punish or cleanse. The duality is convenient. You get to kill someone and claim it's for their own good. You think about water a lot that week. Its cold honesty, the way it reveals, erases, and forgives sometimes all at once. That night, you have a different dream. You're the one being lowered. Rope creaking, barrel cold, you breathe in, and instead of drowning, you float upward, through the water, into a sky made of smoke and candlelight. You wake before you hit the surface. The following morning, you find another charm on your doorstep. This one's wrapped in silk, lavender again, but this time it smells like old coins and damp stone. You burn it too, but the smoke rises slower, lingers. You wonder if someone's trying to protect you, or warn you, or both. You make a list of who might care enough to try either. The list is short, the names blur together. One stands out, the woman in the forest. You return to the woods that evening, just before dusk, the air thick with insects and tension. You sit on the same log. Wait, say nothing. She arrives. You've been busy? She says. You nod. They won't stop sending you names. I know. Do you ever say no? You think about that. Not yet. She tilts her head. They'll come for you eventually. You don't ask who they are. She hands you a small vial. Clear, odourless, weightless. Drink it when the time feels wrong, she says. Then she's gone again, like fog. You pocket the vial. It clinks against the charms you didn't burn. You tell yourself you're keeping them for evidence, for curiosity, for reasons. Back home, you polish your boots, sort your ledgers. There's an entry you forgot to write. You dip your quill. Drowned. One. No resistance. Then, on a whim, you write her name and underline it. You sit back. The fire pops. The muttering quiets for a moment. Like it's reading over your shoulder, you whisper to the silence, "I'm still here." It doesn't answer, but it doesn't argue either. The river has never looked more innocent. In the morning light, it glitters like coins scattered by careless gods, every ripple a wink, every bend a secret. You stand at its edge, boots sinking slightly into the mud, trying not to remember the last body pulled from its depths, trying harder not to imagine the next. You run a cloth over your axe. It doesn't need cleaning. It didn't touch the water, but rituals matter. Not for superstition, for rhythm, for control. Your hands need something to do besides tremble. You're back home again, but home doesn't feel right. The hinges squeak a different pitch. The floorboards groan in unfamiliar tones. You haven't moved anything, but it feels rearranged by unseen hands. You sleep less now, or maybe just lighter. The muttering hasn't stopped, but it's changed. Sometimes it sounds like laughter, sometimes weeping. Sometimes it says your name. This morning you find a chicken at your doorstep, dead, neatly, neck snapped. Laid on a bed of rosemary and white feathers, a warning, perhaps, or a joke. You leave it where it is and step over it. At market, people avoid you more than usual. Conversations hush when you pass. Eyes dart. A young man flinches so violently he drops his basket. You bend to help him. He recoils. "Don't touch me," he whispers. You don't. You simply stand, hands at your side, and walk away, slowly, like you're made of glass and fire. That night, you sit in your cottage and light every candle you own. The flicker doesn't chase the shadows, it multiplies them. They dance along the walls like ghosts warming up for a monologue. You open your ledger, you stare at the names. They're just lines and ink, but your mind paints them with eyes, with screams, with last words and last meals and mothers clutching rosaries. You close the book. In the corner sits a box. You haven't touched it in weeks. Inside rope ends, cloth scraps, broken cuffs, souvenirs of silence. But now there's something new. The vial. You take it out. Hold it to the light, still clear, still waiting, you tuck it away again. The next scroll arrives before sunrise. Same seal, same boy, though he looks thinner, paler, like he's the one doing the executions. This time, it's different. A noble woman, high-ranking, connected, caught performing rituals in a manor cellar. No trial, no public display, just a quiet removal. You read the scroll twice, then a third time. They want you to handle it. No guard, no crowd, just a carriage and a time. You dress carefully, not for ceremony, out of instinct. Something about this stinks worse than an unwashed scaffold. The manor is vast, ivy choked, windows like judgmental eyes. You're led inside by a servant who doesn't speak, only gestures. The lady waits in a drawing room, sipping tea. She's older than you expected. Elegant. Poised. She looks at you like you're late for something important. "Executioner," she says. "Have a seat." "You do not..." She continues sipping. Calm. Too calm. "I assume you've read the charges." You nod. "They're false, of course." Still, you say nothing. She gestures to the table. "They've asked you to kill me quietly. A mercy. They said, no blade, no rope." You raise an eyebrow. She smiles. "They want poison. Clean, noble, forgettable." You finally speak. "Why me?" She sets down her cup. "Because they trust you. You do what you're told. And because you never talk. You reach for the vial in your coat. Not the poison they gave you, but the other one. The clear one." She watches, curious. You hold it up. "Do you know what this is?" She leans closer, sniffs, smiles. "A choice." You nod. You hand it to her. She doesn't hesitate. Drinks it down like wine. Silence. Then a breath. Slow. Long, deep, and then nothing. Her body doesn't crumple, it simply softens, as though someone let all the tension leak out of her. You stand, walk to the door. The servant is waiting. You nod once. He vanishes down the hallway like a leaf in wind. You leave the manor, mount your horse, ride home. That night, no muttering, only stillness. You sleep like someone who remembers how. The next morning, you find a note under your door. Just 4 words. That wasn't the poison. You stare at it. You laugh. Then you burn it. You open the ledger. Add no name, no mark. You boil tea. Add honey. Sit by the fire. You whisper. Still not dead. And the silence agrees. The next morning is unusually bright, and you hate it. The sun beams through the cracks in your shutters like a smug witness, touching every dusty corner of your home, as if to remind you that nothing can stay hidden forever. You groan, roll out of bed, and stub your toe on your boots. Again. That's the third time this week. You think about moving them. You don't. You stand in front of the mirror, not to admire yourself. Heavens no, but to check if you're still aging at the normal speed. You are. Your hair's a bit thinner, the circles under your eyes deeper. But you're here. That's enough. Outside, birds chirp like they haven't seen things. You stretch, wince, and mutter something that could be a prayer or just a creaky complaint about your hip. Another day, you notice something different when you open the door. No scroll, no runner, no basket of herbs, just silence, a gift. You walk into town, not for anything urgent, just to move. The cobblestones feel more slippery than usual. Or maybe you're imagining things. People still avoid you, but with less flair. It's almost habitual now. Like they've forgotten why you make them nervous. It's just tradition. You pass a group of children drawing on the walls with charcoal. One of them has sketched a figure in a long cloak, holding a blade too big for the body. You stop. You point. The child grins. That's you. You nod. Accurate. The child blinks, unsure whether that was praise or threat. You move on. At the market, the butcher actually greets you. "Morning," he says, eyes locked on a slab of mutton. You grunt in return. He slides a small bundle of meat toward you. On the house, you take it. No questions. No thank you. Just a nod. Progress. Back home. You roast it over your fire. The smell fills the room. You eat slowly, deliberately. It's been a while since anything tasted like it mattered. Later, as the sun dips low, you wander past the field where they used to hang thieves. The gallows are gone now. Torn down after the last execution sparked a riot. People said it was too barbaric, too public, too messy. They say that about a lot of things, until they need it again. You walk past the old posts, now overgrown with weeds and sunflowers. There's something poetic about flowers growing where necks used to snap. You don't dwell on it. You just note it, quietly. You keep walking until you reach the chapel. The one where you used to stand in the back, hoping no one would notice. They noticed. They always noticed. You step inside. The priest is new, young, wide-eyed. He doesn't flinch when he sees you. That alone earns your respect. He nods. Executioner. You nod back. Priest. He gestures to a bench. Sit if you like. You do. You both sit in silence for a long time. No prayers. No judgment. Just wood creaking and candles flickering. Finally, he says, "Do you ever feel it?" You raise an eyebrow. The weight. He clarifies. Of what you do. You stare at the altar, the crucifix, the dried lilies. I feel the silence afterward. You say. He nods like he understands. Maybe he does, maybe not. Before you leave, he hands you a small piece of paper. If the muttering gets too loud, you unfold it later at home. It's a single line. Not everything that bleeds is meant to die. You tape it to the wall. That night, the muttering doesn't come. Instead, you hear breathing. Steady, slow. Yours, someone else's hard to say. You dream of a courtroom but there's no judge, no jury, just the condemned, and they all look like you. You wake before the sentence is read. The next morning, a knock at your door, not the runner, a stranger, tall, hooded, eyes like morning frost. He says, "They want someone boiled." You blink. Boiled. He nods. In oil. You rub your temple. Why, he shrugs. Politics. You sigh. Of course. Boiling is a rare sentence. It's theatrical, expensive, and more about making a point than enforcing justice. Last time it happened, the oil caught fire and the crowd got third-degree burns. Not your finest hour. You agree anyway, because saying no isn't really a skill you've mastered. The cauldron is already in place when you arrive. Iron. Massive. Like a cursed stew pot. The accused a merchant. Wealthy. Arrogant. His crime selling fake holy relics. Pieces of the true cross made from his fence posts. Smart. Until it wasn't. He begs. Of course. Promises gold, influence, silence. You listen. Then you nod to the guards. They lower him slowly. The screams are immediate, unrelenting. You turn your face away. Not from guilt, but from the heat. It's unbearable. When it's over, the silence is worse than the sound. You walk home with the smell of scorched fabric and charred sin clinging to your clothes. You burn them, strip down to nothing. Wash in cold river water until your skin stings. You don't record his name. Instead, you sit by the fire and stare at the priest note. Not everything that bleeds is meant to die. You whisper. Then why do so many no answer? Just firelight and the distant groan of a windmill turning in the dark. You've never seen a windmill stop mid-turn until tonight. It stands frozen on the horizon like a giant caught mid-thought. You watch it from your cottage window. Bowl of cold porridge in your lap. Spoon unmoving. Even the wind seems to have taken a breath it refuses to exhale. You place the spoon down. The windmill creaks once, then nothing. Omen. Maybe. You've stopped pretending things aren't signs. By mid-morning, a new scroll arrives. Not from the mayor, not from the crown. No seal. Just red twine wrapped twice and tied in a knot you instantly hate. You open it. One word. Confess. That's it. No name. No instructions. No time, date, or signature. You hold it over the fire, but pause. Instead, you place it inside your ledger between the names of a pickpocket and a baroness. You don't know why. The silence stretches, then a second knock. That's never happened. You answer the door half expecting a ghost, or maybe that executioner pen pal finally come to visit. Instead, it's the forest woman. She's paler, thinner. Her eyes look older. She holds out her hand. Come. You do. You follow her past the edge of town, into trees that breathe louder than most people. The air thickens. Moss squelches underfoot. Birds quiet. You reach a clearing, one you've never seen, though you've wandered these woods 100 times. In the centre a table, stone, circular. Surrounding it chairs carved with symbols you half recognise from charms burned months ago. She gestures. You sit. She sits opposite. So do 6 others. Men, women, 1 child, all silent, all staring. No introductions, just presence. You've seen too much, the woman says. You nod. You've carried too much. Another nod. You've done what others refused. You raise an eyebrow. The child speaks. Do you regret it? The question knocks the breath from your lungs. You don't answer right away. A squirrel scrambles overhead. The wind shivers. I regret. The necessity, you say. Murmurs ripple like rain hitting leaves. The woman leans forward. Then you're ready. Ready for what she pulls a cloth from beneath the table, unfolds it, reveals tools older than yours. Iron worn to silver at the edges, a black hood with gold stitching, a small bell. You recognize it. All executioners do. It's the calling set. Old as the job, older than records. A thing passed down not between fathers and sons, but between those who've seen the work and still return. I already have tools, you say. She shakes her head. These aren't for use. They're for rest. A silence. Then a whisper. You've earned retirement. You nearly laugh. Not because it's funny, but because it's absurd. No one retires, you say. They die. Or vanish? Exactly, she says. They don't explain further. They don't need to. You look at the tools again. The bell rings once on its own. Later, you walk back through the forest with the bundle under your arm. Your feet softer than ever. Lighter. The moss welcomes you now. No squelch. No protest. At home. The windmill turns again. Inside, you unpack the calling set. Place the hood on the wall. The bell on the shelf. The tools in a box you don't intend to open. You sit by the fire and stare. The muttering has stopped. The silence isn't empty anymore. It's spacious. You eat your porridge, reheated, still bland, still comfort. That night, you do something you haven't done in decades. You write a letter to your fellow executioner. You write, still not dead, but I might be done. You seal it. No wax, just thread. You sleep without nightmares, and when you wake, the windmill is still turning. The fields are quiet. The tools stay untouched, and you, for once, don't mind. You wake to the sound of your own heartbeat, slow, steady, unfamiliar in its calm. No bells, no knocks, no scrolls. Just the morning light creeping across your floor like it's trying not to disturb you. You sit up. Nothing aches more than usual. Your back still stiff. Your fingers still swollen at the joints. But something deeper feels untouched, as though the violence of yesterday forgot to follow you into today. You dress slower than usual. Not because you're tired, because you're curious how it feels to move without urgency. You open the window. The air smells like dirt and apples. You let it in. For the first time in a very long while, you choose where to walk. You head toward the old mill pond. Nobody goes there anymore. It's too far from the road, and children whisper that ghosts live in its ripples. You know better. Ghosts don't live in ponds. They live in jobs. The water's still. A dragonfly lands on your sleeve and doesn't flee. You take it as a compliment. You sit on a sun-warmed rock and just breathe. Then you hear them footsteps. Fast. Familiar. The runner. Of course. You don't turn. You just speak. I'm retired. He pants. You can't. Retire. You glance over your shoulder. He's older now. You've watched him grow. First with fear, then with indifference. Now, something like desperation. They need you, he says. You turn back to the pond. Someone always does. He shifts. It's noble, important. They said I said I'm done. He goes quiet, then softer. What should I tell them? You toss a pebble. It skips once, twice, sinks. Tell them to sharpen their own blade. You wait. Eventually, his footsteps fade. You return home to find a scroll nailed to your door. No seal, just words, hastily scrawled. We'll come for you. You laugh. You make tea. You drink it slowly, savouring every bitter, rooty note. You let it burn your tongue. Just a little. You've missed the taste of things that remind you you're alive. Later, you tend the garden. It's more weeds than food now, but they're familiar weeds, stubborn, low to the ground, like you. You hear the horsemen before you see them, hooves on gravel, armour clanking, voices trying to sound brave. You stay seated. They stop outside the gate, 3 of them, faces hidden behind polished masks. One reads from a parchment that flutters in the wind. By royal decree, you are ordered to carry out the execution of you raise your hand. No. They pause. No one repeats. As though the word has lost all meaning, you stand, slowly. Let the silence stretch. I don't carry scrolls anymore. They shift in their saddles, uncertain. One reaches for his sword. You meet his eyes. You don't flinch. He doesn't draw. They leave, not quickly, not proudly, just defeated. You go inside. That night, you pull out the ledger. You add one last line. Said no, still alive. You close the book, wrap it in cloth, bury it beneath the hearth. The bell from the calling set rings once. You didn't touch it. You sleep deeply. You dream of every face you've ever watched disappear. But this time, they smile. Not warmly, not kindly, just knowingly. You wake with tears in your eyes, not from sorrow, from relief. The next morning, there's dew on the grass and a strange bird call in the distance. You've never heard this one before. It rises, falls, then vanishes like it never existed. You wonder if it was real or if the forest has finally started talking back. You don't eat, not out of dread, just no appetite. Your stomach's quiet, peaceful, even, like it knows the hunt is over. You pour water from your jug, cold, clear. You drink it standing up, watching sunlight stretch across your wall like a slow yawn. The axe stays where it is on the hook, behind the door. You haven't touched it in days. You don't miss it. You walk toward the town square, out of habit more than need. It's market day. Bread, cloth, soap, more bread. Always bread. The air smells like yeast and arguments. A woman shouts about cabbage. A man tries to sell sheep that look suspiciously borrowed. Nobody flinches when they see you. That's new. A child waves. You wave back, almost forgetting how. Then you see the man with the cane. You know him, not by name, but by posture. Years ago, he stood trembling at the edge of the scaffold, waiting for the signal, his crime heresy, or maybe defiance, or maybe he was just too loud in the wrong tavern. You can't remember. He limped away after a last-minute pardon. You remember the sigh that went through the crowd like someone had deflated their lungs. He sees you. He doesn't run. He nods. You nod back. You buy bread. It's soft, fresh, far too expensive. You pay anyway. Coins jingle. The baker gives you exact change. Nobody spits near your boots. Progress. Back at home, you light a candle not for ceremony, but for scent. Beeswax and lavender. You've earned softness. There's a knock. You expect it this time. You're already standing when the door creaks open. Not the runner, not the guards, not the priest. Him, your fellow executioner. Finally, he's older, greyer. His cloak hangs limp, and his boots leak. Thought I'd find you dead, he says. You shrug. Still not. He steps inside without asking, pours himself a mug of your weak ale, sits at your table like he belongs there. Maybe he does. You sit too. For a long time, nothing is said. Then, he sighs. I'm tired. You nod. I tried quitting. You nod again. They said I'd die if I did. You smirk. They say that about most things. He studies you, but you didn't. No, he laughs. It's rusty. A bit broken, but real. He reaches into his coat and pulls out his ledger. Yours was buried under the hearth. His is stained, warped, held together with string and denial. He opens it, flips to the last page. Last name I wrote was a poet. He says, cried like a baby. You don't ask what he wrote beside it. He closes the book, sets it on the table. You place your hand over it. He looks at you. You think they'll let us be no. You say honestly. Then what we say no anyway. He leans back. Outside, the wind shifts. Clouds roll in like gossip. Thunder murmurs behind the hills. You both stare at the storm. You ever regret it, he asks. You take your time. Only when it was quiet. He chuckles. Still is. You shake your head. Different now. It's earned. The storm breaks. Rain taps the windows gently, like it's trying not to wake you. He doesn't stay the night. He leaves just before midnight, cloak heavier, shoulders lighter. You watch him walk into the dark. Then you sit. You open your hand. Inside a charm he left behind. Simple, woven grass. Smells like ash. You hang it above the door, not for protection, for memory. You sleep by the fire, no dreams, just warmth, just quiet, and the soft exhale of a job that no longer owns you. You wake before the light does, stirred by the gentle creak of your own breath, and the memory of rain still whispering on the roof. The fire's out, the coals are cold, but your bones don't ache, not today. They simply exist quiet, obedient, as though they've agreed not to complain. You sit up slowly. The blanket slips from your shoulders. You don't rush to reclaim it. Outside, the world is soaked. The soil hums beneath your feet, and every leaf shines with 1,000 silver truths. You step into it barefoot, your toes sinking into earth softened by yesterday's storm. It feels kind. You walk the path behind your cottage, the one that leads not to the gallows or the market, but to nowhere in particular. A wandering path, a choice path. Birds call, not the kind that screech, but the kind that trill like they've remembered the lyrics to a lullaby you forgot you knew. You find yourself at the old execution field. The wood posts are long gone, taken down when they became bad for morale, or maybe just when the rock got too obvious to ignore. In their place now, grass, wildflowers, a single lopsided bench. You sit. You let the silence sit beside you. This is where you watched people die. Where you felt the crowd's breath tighten as your blade rose. Where the rope swung long after the soul had stopped. And now, it's just quiet. You pluck a dandelion, blow it apart, watch the seeds scatter like tiny parachutes looking for a place to rest. You think about the forest woman, her eyes, the vial, the bell. You haven't heard it since. Maybe that means something, maybe it doesn't. Back at home, you find a package at your door, no scroll, no threat, just a wooden box wrapped in waxed cloth. You carry it in, set it on the table, and stare at it. It smells of cedar and dust. You open it, inside a pair of gloves, leather, worn, stitched at the knuckles with red thread. Beneath them, a note. For the hands that stopped swinging. You run a finger along the stitching. The gloves fit perfectly, even over your calluses. You don't know who sent them. You don't need to. Some debts are paid silently. That night, you light the bell from the calling set. Not ring. Light. It's a small ritual, old, barely remembered. You place a candle inside. The metal glows faintly, softly. Then you listen. No muttering, just wind. And something else faint, melodic, laughter. You can't be sure. You write another letter, this one to no one in particular. The gallows are quiet. The axe is dull. The ledger is closed. I think this means I've survived. You don't seal it. You leave it on the sill. Let the wind decide where it goes. The next morning, a boy knocks on your door. Not the runner. A different boy. Dirt smudged, big eyes, carrying a bundle wrapped in linen. You're the one who used to... He hesitates. Do things. You nod. He holds out the bundle. My mum said you'd know what to do with this. You unwrap it. A small bird. Dead. Its wing mangled. He looks close to tears. You kneel. What do you want me to do? He sniffs. Make it not hurt anymore. You nod. You build a tiny pyre out back. Lay the bird on it gently. You say nothing ceremonial, nothing grand. You just light the kindling and watch the smoke carry the bird somewhere else. The boy watches too. When it's done, he wipes his nose. Thanks. He starts to leave, then turns back. Was it scary? Doing what you did? You think, not at first, and later. You nod. Every day. He considers this, then nods once and walks off down the path. You stand in the smoke a little longer. Later, you find your axe. You bury it. Deep. The ground closes over it with a finality you hadn't expected to need. Then you walk away. Not from guilt, from gravity, from the weight of being useful in ways that destroy. And for the first time, you think maybe you weren't just the end. Maybe, now, you're something else. The next days pass without edges. There are no summons, no letters, no strange tokens wrapped in cloth. Just the soft repetition of life sweeping floors, boiling tea, watching the mist roll through the valley like it owns the place. Your hands, once instruments of finality, have learned new tasks. You mend a broken stool, pull weeds from your garden, stitch a rip in your only decent shirt. The gloves, those red-stitched ones, hang by the window like polite ghosts. You haven't worn them since. You don't need to. And yet, you still wait, not for death. You're not that dramatic, but for something. A sign, a whisper, a mistake knocking on your door, asking to be buried. Instead, it's the priest. He arrives in the early evening, walking like his feet still remember paths he hasn't taken. His robe is damp at the hem. He's holding a satchel. You open the door before he can knock. He smiles, sheepish. Didn't want to assume you'd let me in. You nod. Step aside. He sits. You pour him tea. There's no ceremony, no sermon, just two men, one tired faith and steam rising between them. I buried someone today, he says. You wait. Not a noble, not a criminal, just a girl. Fever took her. You nod. She had no family, just a charm in her hand. Woven grass, burned at the edges. Your breath catches. He notices, doesn't press. She asked for you. Your voice is quiet. She knew my name, no. Just said, tell the one who stopped swinging. The silence stretches. He sips. Is that you? You stare into your mug. I think so. He nods. She said thank you. You close your eyes. He doesn't stay long. Just enough to finish his tea, warm his hands, and remind you that not all stories end with a blade. After he leaves, you walk behind your cottage, past the spot where you buried your axe, past the place where you burned the bird, to the old tree with bark like parchment and roots like history. You sit beneath it. You whisper, still not dead. A breeze answers. No words, just movement. That night, you don't sleep. You rest. There's a difference. You wake before dawn and feel the sky shift. Something's changed. You can't explain it. You just know. You dress in plain clothes, no cloak, no hood, no belt of tools. You walk through town. The streets are slick with dew. The tavern shutters bang softly in the wind. People stir in doorways. They see you. They don't look away. A woman nods. A man raises his hand in greeting. A child waves. You wave back. And still. No one says your name. They don't need to. It's not who you are anymore. You leave the village by the south road. Not far, just to the hilltop where the sun always rises clean. Where you once watched a man confess with his final breath and realised too late he was innocent. You sit there now, not in judgment, but in witness. The sun rises, warm, steady, forgiving. You take a piece of paper from your pocket, blank. You write, I release what I held. I forgive what I did. I remember who I was, but I'm not that now. You fold it. Place it under a stone. Walk away. Not because you're running, because there's finally a forward. The road forward is narrow, edged by wildflowers and the kind of silence that doesn't need explaining. You walk it without a map. Your boots lighter than they've ever felt, though the soles still remember every scaffold they've stood on. You don't know where you're going. You only know you're not going back. You pass a farmhouse whose windows blink gold in the morning sun. A dog barks once, but not in warning, more like a greeting. A child runs across the yard, chasing a chicken with the kind of unearned confidence only youth allows. You smile. You keep walking. The trees grow taller here, denser. You move into a patch of forest you've never entered, even though it sits just beyond your old field. The trees whisper, not in muttering tones like your past used to, but in leafy conversations about wind and birds and things that no longer concern you. And then you see it, a cottage. Much like yours, but neater. The roof is thatched properly, the herbs strung with care, the chimney puffing like it remembers what comfort means. She's waiting for you, the forest woman. Older now, or maybe just more real. She sits on the steps, sharpening a blade that isn't for killing, just for trimming vines. Took you long enough, she says. You nod. I wasn't sure there was anywhere to go. There always is. You sit beside her. She offers you a mug of something bitter and hot. You don't ask what's in it. You just drink. I stopped hearing them. You say, the dead. The guilt. She nods. They're the same. Mostly. You both sit in the silence that follows, watching the smoke curl from the chimney like it has somewhere important to be. You knew this would happen, you say. I hoped. You glance at her hands, weathered, steady. She's been where you've been, maybe still is, but she carries it differently, like a stone tucked in a pocket, not a chain around her neck. You ask, did you bury yours? No, I melted it down. What did you make? She sips her drink, a weather vane. You laugh. It surprises you. The sound's rusty, but honest. She smiles. You'll need a job, she says. You raise an eyebrow. Doing what? Fixing things. Like fences, like people. You frown. I'm not qualified. You were an executioner for how long? Too long. She shrugs. That's long enough to understand what people break like. You look out across the forest. The sky's lighter now. Birds chase each other through the branches. She stands. There's a boy in the next village. Doesn't speak. Doesn't eat. Saw something he shouldn't have. You know the look. You've worn it. I'll go. You say, tomorrow. She replies, tonight, you rest. She hands you a blanket. You don't ask if it's clean. You just drape it over your lap and stare into the fire she lights in the pit beside the steps. The smoke doesn't smell like death. It smells like pine. Like new beginnings, like something that wasn't possible until you let go of what you carried for far too long. You sit up with her into the night. No words, just warmth, just fire, just the sound of a forest that no longer fears your presence. And when you sleep, you dream not of muttering or blood, but of something stranger, a field with no gallows, a village with no need for silence, a life unwritten, waiting for your hand. The boy doesn't look at you when you arrive. He sits beneath a twisted fig tree just outside the village boundary, knees drawn to his chest, dirt smudged across his cheeks like accidental war paint. You approach slowly, boots crunching gently against dried leaves, arms at your side like you're greeting a frightened animal. He doesn't run. That's something. You don't speak. You just sit on the ground a few feet away. It's rough, uneven, the kind of earth that leaves your bones arguing by sundowners, but you stay. Because sometimes staying is the whole point. He's maybe 8, 9 if he's been fed well, which by the looks of him he hasn't. A village woman told you his father died in the last town over. Public hanging. Petty theft, they said. But you know that tone, that vague distance that means someone wanted someone gone, and the law obliged. The boy saw it happen. He hasn't spoken since. You spend the first 2 days just being present. You eat your bread nearby. You leave him a portion, but never ask if he eats it. You hum sometimes, low, tuneless, not cheerful, just background noise. Something other than the scream he probably still hears every time he closes his eyes. On the 3rd day, he draws a line in the dirt, straight, firm, like a rope. You draw one next to it, then a square, then a triangle. He glances. Progress. You don't ask questions. You just respond. You sketch a small bird. He blinks at it, then rubs it out with his foot. Fair enough. By day 5, he's humming your tuneless hum. By day 7, he moves closer. You still haven't heard his voice. But when you hand him a cup of water, his fingers brush yours deliberately. That alone says more than any confession ever could. You help mend a fence in his village during the afternoons. Your hands still remember how to split wood, tie rope, balance weight. It's not elegant, but it holds. One evening, the boy is there waiting for you at the end of the path. He hands you something, a stick figure, drawn on thin bark, no noose, just arms. He's trying. You nod, and for the first time, he almost smiles. At night, you return to the forest cottage. The woman's not always there. She has her own errands tending to souls who fray in quieter ways. But sometimes she's home, and when she is, you talk over tea like the world didn't almost chew you to pieces. She tells you stories, not the grand kind, little ones, about goats that escape twice in one day, about a baker who swears her bread can stop nightmares, about a child who planted seeds in his shoes and now grows parsley from his toes. They're ridiculous. You love them. Once, you ask if she remembers her first execution. She nods, doesn't smile. I was 17, she says. They told me it was tradition. You nod? Same. She says she wept after. You admit you didn't. Not then. She puts a hand on your shoulder. We don't start with guilt. We learn it. You carry that sentence around for days. You carry it all the way back to the fig tree, where the boy has drawn a house in the dirt, a square, with smoke curling from the top. You draw another. He points to yours, then gestures to the village, then points to his, then, softly, finally, he says yours is warmer. It breaks something, but not in a painful way, like a knot coming undone. You nod. He sits beside you. Not close, but closer. You don't respond, just hum. He joins you. Two voices, off-key, beautiful in their dissonance. The seasons begin to shift without asking your permission. One morning, the dew on the grass turns to frost, and you know, without needing to see a calendar, that autumn has slipped into the room like a tired guest returning home. The boy, whose name you now know is Tom, doesn't flinch at the cold. He's grown in the weeks since you arrived. Not taller, just steadier. His eyes still carry shadows, but now they blink without fear, and that's its own kind of healing. Today, he brings you a gift. It's a doll, crudely sewn from leftover fabric and stuffed with dry moss. The head is too big. One arm hangs limp. It looks like it's had a hard life already. He holds it out like it's sacred. For you, he mumbles. That's the third thing he's said. You take it with both hands. Treat it like it's made of glass. What's their name? He shrugs. You get to choose. You name it Mercy. Not for irony, not for nostalgia. Just because it feels right to give that word a better job this time around. You build a fire together behind the village barn, not to burn anything, just to sit beside. You show Tom how to find dry twigs even after rain, how to angle the kindling, how to blow gently, not too much, not too fast. When the flame catches, he whispers, I want to be like you. You nearly drop the moss-stuffed doll. You look at him. His face is lit with firelight and hope and 1,000 other things you never expected to see again. You want to tell him no. Thus being like you means carrying silence and shame like stones in your boots. That it means learning the weight of a head before you know how to tie your own shoes. That it's a job no child should crave. But you don't say any of that. Instead, you say, then you'll need to learn how to listen. He nods. Later, when you walk him back to the edge of his village, he tells you that he no longer dreams of the gallows. Now he dreams of birds. Black ones, huge. But they don't peck or scream. They just watch. You tell him that's good. Watching is the first step to understanding. You don't say they used to watch you too. The next morning, you find the forest woman by the stream, kneeling with a basket of herbs. She doesn't look up. He likes you. He's learning. She smirks. So are you. You crouch beside her, pluck leaves, sniff stems. She shows you which ones make people sleep, which ones open the lungs, which ones, if brewed wrong, can stop a heart. You don't ask how she knows. She doesn't ask how you do. That night, you sit outside your cottage, Mercy the doll perched on your knee. The bell from the calling set still hangs inside, untouched, but you think you might hear it vibrating faintly, not ringing, not mourning, just reminding. You close your eyes and you realize something strange. You no longer count the days since your last execution. You no longer feel like you're waiting to be summoned. And the silence that used to sit beside you like an accusation, now it just sits, quiet, comfortable, tamed. You take a walk before bed, down the path with no destination. You see fireflies, first of the season, little floating embers blinking in and out like they've got nothing better to do than make darkness prettier. You watch them until you forget you're watching, and for the first time since you laid down your axe, you say it aloud, not to the boy, not to the forest woman, not even to yourself, just to the air. I forgive me. The wind doesn't reply, but it doesn't need to. It just moves gently around you and keeps going. A letter arrives, folded 3 times and tucked into the hollow of an old oak stump near your path. You find it by chance or by fate, depending on how poetic you feel that morning. The parchment is thin, the ink smudged as if written in haste or during tears. There's no seal, no name, just 3 words on the outside: please come soon. Inside, a village to the east, a boy gone silent, a mother desperate, a sickness not of the body, but of memory. You fold the letter and place it in your coat. No reply is necessary. Some invitations are already accepted by the time they're read. You pack lightly blanket, bread, a small satchel of herbs the forest woman gave you, and Mercy, the doll, who now rides in your pack like a strange little talisman. Tom gives you a nod as you leave, a goodbye without drama. He's helping repair the village wall, hammering pegs with more confidence than most men twice his age. You reach the village by nightfall. It smells of wet stone and recent grief. You knock on a door that barely stands. A woman opens it, her eyes bruised with sleeplessness. She doesn't ask who you are, just steps aside. Sometimes your presence is explanation enough. The boy is in the corner, eyes vacant, mouth open, breathing, but barely. You kneel slowly, hold your hand out. He doesn't react. You hum soft, low, the same tune Tom once echoed. Nothing. You whisper, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to wait. And so you wait. 1 day, 2. You sit by his side as the world continues without him. You speak quietly about trees and soup and how stars are really just holes in heaven's floor. On the 3rd morning, he blinks. On the 4th, he turns his head. On the 5th, he weeps. You hold his hand through it. Not tight, just enough. By the 7th, he whispers. He didn't scream. He just looked at me. You nod. Was that bad? He asks. No, you say. It was human. He sleeps that night without tossing. The mother hugs you when you leave. Her arms shake. Yours don't. The road home is longer than usual. The forest seems to lean in as you pass, like it's checking your temperature or measuring your weight. You hum again, not for comfort, just for company. When you return, the woman is boiling something sweet-smelling in a pot. She doesn't ask, just hands you a cup. You sip. Let the heat settle in your chest like a story that ends well. You should teach others, she says. You raise an eyebrow. Teach how to hold grief without dropping it. You laugh softly. I'm still learning that. Good, she says. Best teachers are. You build a bench together the next day, a real one, sturdy, smooth. You place it beneath the fig tree near Tom's village. He helps carry it. When you set it down, he carves something into the wood before you can stop him. Just 2 letters, E, H. You stare. He shrugs. Executioner healer. You shake your head. Let's just call it eased hurt. He grins. You sit. He sits beside you. You both watch the wind move through the fields like it's searching for something it lost. And for once, you don't feel like it's you. You awaken one morning to the sound of distant bells tolling softly, not the harsh clang of the market bell or the shrill summons of the town crier, but a gentle rhythm like a heartbeat echoing through the dawn. It carries a sense of calm unfamiliar, yet welcome. You rise, the stiffness in your joints a gentle reminder of the years behind you, and move to the window. Outside, the village stirs with life. Smoke curls from chimneys, children scamper barefoot over cobblestones, and the churchyard's flowers seem to nod in the morning breeze. Today, you're no longer the man who carried the axe or delivered the sentence. You're just a man who knows what silence means and has learned how to hold it. You head to the village square, where a small crowd gathers around a cart laden with vegetables and fresh bread. The baker spots you and offers a nod. No hesitation. A woman offers a warm smile. A child runs up and hands you a wildflower, the petals soft between your rough fingers. You kneel to meet the child's eyes, grateful for the small gift, and tuck it into your coat. The child giggles and runs off, leaving you smiling a smile free of ghosts. Later, you visit Tom's village. The boy has grown, his eyes bright with new stories and laughter. You share bread and stories beneath the fig tree, the bench you built together worn smooth by time and use. You tell him you're proud, not just for surviving, but for living. As the sun dips low, you walk through the forest with the woman who taught you to listen. She points to a sapling growing wild and free. It's new, she says. You nod. So are we. She smiles, and that's enough. You sit by the fire, the bell from the calling set resting quietly nearby. It no longer rings or hums. It simply exists, a reminder of what was and what might still be. You think about the faces you saw, the lives you touched, the weight you carried and the release you found. You whisper to the night, "Thank you." The stars blink back, patient and wise. You close your eyes. The muttering has finally stopped, and with it, the story ends. The morning arrives quietly, without fanfare or the usual creak of your door. You wake with a sense of weightlessness, as though you've been unburdened in your sleep. The air is crisp, and the world outside hums softly with new life, the kind of life that doesn't ask questions or judge. You dress slowly, savouring the simple act of pulling on clean clothes, feeling fabric against your skin instead of the familiar roughness of your executioner's cloak. You step outside, where the sun paints the rooftops gold and birds sing without reservation. You make your way to the village square, now a place of bustling energy rather than dread. Vendors smile genuinely, children laugh, and the scent of fresh bread mingles with wildflowers. You feel, for the first time in decades, that you belong here not as a shadow, but as a man. At the market, a stranger approaches you, a traveller with kind eyes and a knowing smile. He carries a leather-bound book, worn but cared for. He hands it to you without a word. Inside, the pages are filled with names of those you executed, those you helped heal, and those you've yet to meet. You've carried their stories, the traveller says softly. Now it's time to tell yours. You nod, understanding the weight and the gift. You take the book and promise to write not just the grim tales of endings, but the fragile moments of beginnings. That evening, You sit by the fire with pen in hand. The flames dance, casting shadows that flicker like memories. You begin to write a narrative of a man who walked through darkness and found light, who held life and death in his hands and chose, finally, to live. Outside, the wind sings lullaby. The village sleeps peacefully, cradled by the night. You write until your hand aches, until your eyes grow heavy, and until the story feels complete, not because it is, but because you are ready. You close the book and set it aside, the pages softly whispering in the quiet. You lean back, breathe deeply, and let the calm settle over you like a warm blanket. Tomorrow is a new day, and you are here for it. The sun filters softly through your window, casting a warm glow on the worn wooden floorboards. You awaken slowly, feeling the weight of years finally lift from your shoulders like morning mist. The air smells faintly of pine and earth, a reminder that life moves forward, gently but inexorably. You rise and stretch, every bone protesting the stillness of the night. But there's a peace you haven't known in decades. Today is not about endings, but beginnings. You step outside and breathe deeply. The village is alive with the quiet hum of daily routines, doors opening, children's laughter, a dog barking somewhere down the lane. You walk without destination, letting the path guide you, feeling the soft earth beneath your feet instead of the cold, hard scaffold. At the edge of the forest, the woman who once guided you waits. She smiles, her eyes reflecting the wisdom of seasons past. "You're ready," she says simply. You nod. Together, you walk into the trees, the canopy sheltering you like a promise. Birds sing overhead, and the wind whispers stories of forgiveness and renewal. You think of every name in your ledger, every face that flickers in memory, some lost, some saved, all part of the mosaic that shaped you. The bell from the calling set hangs silently in your pack, no longer a call to duty, but a reminder of the journey. As the sun dips low, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose, you sit by a quiet stream. You dip your hands into the cool water and let it run through your fingers, washing away the last echoes of the past. You close your eyes and whisper a final goodbye, not to the lives you ended, but to the man you were. The forest breathes around you, a living lullaby, and as night falls, you feel the soft embrace of peace. The story ends here, for now.